Hi, it's Rob from Brightspot, and I wanted to share something that inspired me recently, which is an approach to fundraising and to communication from charities that's been working really well this year and has been, I think, more important than ever this year. And it reminds me of a key piece of advice that was given at our Brightspot live event last year by a brilliant marketing expert and best-selling author called Grant LeBoff. And one of the key ideas he was explaining to our audience of fundraisers at that event was now that everyone's got a smartphone, communication just is different. And if most of our communication is going out and trying to make a sale or ask for money, it no longer works. In this age of the smartphone, Grant's advice was to proactively be creating content which in and of itself is interesting and useful to your supporters, and that is not necessarily driven by you trying to ask for a gift, for instance. So it could be stories which are in and of themselves interesting about the people you help or the areas that you help, or it could be something else, but the creating of intrinsically valuable content was a key thing that he sees high-performing organizations do right now. And the reason I was inspired to make this film is in December I've signed up to an online advent calendar which has been created by a wonderful charity called Mousetrap. And Mousetrap is a theatre education charity. They're relatively small, but they've been doing wonderful work for years. And in the last year or two, I've followed them, not least because they've been creating some wonderful communication and fundraising projects. And the way this advent calendar works is if you sign up each day in December leading up to Christmas, they'll send you a very short film, just a minute or two, and sometimes it's some of their volunteers singing a Christmas carol. Sometimes it's some of the young people they work with doing some kind of Christmas performance as a group or on their own. On day one, it happened to be Alison Steadman, the actress, reading a lovely Christmas poem. And just the act of receiving these lovely little films makes me smile and feel good about the charity. Now, at the end of each film, there is also information for how and where you could donate to support the wonderful work they do to help vulnerable children. But as Grant LeBoff would say, the key thing about the message is not about the ask. It's about this wonderful, interesting, useful content that makes you smile that they're sending every day of December if you sign up. So 2 or 3 points I would make right now is, number one is, if you haven't got an advent calendar thing or a Christmassy film to send out to your supporters, I'm not trying to make you feel bad about that. Maybe that's not the right style anyway, and maybe if you haven't got the resources to get it done now, I really think that's not the point. It's not about the tactic. It's not about the advent calendar. It's about the mindset that are we proactively creating content that meets the interests and meets the needs of the kinds of people who care about our charity? And it may be that you kind of shift a gear and do that in January or February. But equally, it may be that you have had a good idea in December to create some kind of warm communication that says thank you to your supporters at this time of year. And maybe the act of checking out what Mousetrap have been doing or watching this film I'm making now just helps you get the courage to follow through and just, even if it's not perfect, even if it's quite crude, to create some kind of film or messaging that sends out that feeling. Maybe that is a thing you could take from their example, but I'm not saying every charity needs to go out and do it exactly as they've done. They're a certain kind of charity with a certain kind of strengths and resources. Yours will be different, but maybe the following through on it is a thing you could do, not least because this time last year, Mousetrap created a wonderful, it was relatively simple, it was a 3 or 4 minute film where they cut together footage of different stakeholders like their volunteers and the children who work with them and the staff in Christmas jumpers singing a Christmas song. They did that last year. They got so much great feedback, I gather, from last year's Christmas song that probably helped them follow through and create this more advanced series of mini films this year. So if all you do is just make a start, galvanize decision making and courage within the organisation to do something that takes a slight risk in this regard of how you communicate, then I would say, could you just take a leap and do that thing? Because in due course, it'll increase your chances of doing ever more powerful things in the future based on the feedback from this one. The second thing I would say is maybe films aren't the right thing for you. Maybe extra Zoom calls or a virtual project visit with your supporters are not the right thing. Who knows what the tactics are? It could be different tactics that suit different organisations, but I think the key thing is proactively doing things that help your supporters connect and it meets their needs. One of the best tactics that I gather Mousetrap have been doing is they send out these lovely thank you cards, and on the front there's an image which evokes what their cause is all about, and inside there is a lovely quote, for instance, from a grateful parent of someone who's benefited from their projects. And the sending out of these lovely, warm, on-brand thank you cards, I gather, has been a really powerful thing they've been doing in 2020 to say thank you and send a warm, positive feeling to people who've been supporting the charity this year. And I gather that things like this have really helped the patrons and the supporters of this charity to step up and be really incredibly generous this year. And that clearly can only have helped the charity going into 2021. And I guess the last idea I would say is I understand resources are tight. It may just be too much to fit in, but if you can proactively, for instance, create some kind of bespoke film made with Zoom or made with a smartphone, or again, it doesn't need to be Christmassy. It could just be some particular story or thank you said by someone who delivers your programs or from your chief exec. The act of taking the risk to create this stuff can be hard work, but just realise that it can pay you back manyfold. It's not just about the film, because, for instance, if you then get for free get that film transcribed, then you can relatively easily repurpose that into a blog. And from that film, you could create several short clips to share on social media. And you could create a chunk of a film which you could send a link to your major donors or trust or corporate supporters. So the act of creating one good piece of content doesn't just help you once. It could help you 3, 4, 5, 6 other ways to pay you back for the effort you put into creating this great content which adds value to your supporters. So, to sum up, do check out the way Mousetrap have done it. If nothing else, I hope it'll bring a smile to your face. But if you're going to use this as inspiration to follow through on really powerful, inspiring communication that works for your own fundraising, then I would say it's not about the advent calendar. It's about the mindset. You choose the tactics that work for you and your brand. Secondly, just making a start, doing something, even if it's not perfect, gets you in the game and makes it easier to then follow through and do more advanced things in due course, because of course you can get re-inspired by the feedback and you can learn from how it goes. And thirdly, just be aware, yes, it can be hard work to make one of these things happen, but see the value of repurposing. So especially if it's a recording, could you turn that same story into a blog, social media clips, things you can send on, a story you could send on, a link to your supporters, and so on. So those are my 3 top tips. I hope this has been helpful. I wish you a really Merry Christmas and best of luck with your fundraising. Goodbye.